Good evening and welcome to tonight's driver's ed class. We will wait for people to sign in and log in. Let me see who is here. So we're going to wait just a few minutes. Hello, hello. I was kind of late to put in a brief description about tonight's class. It's kind of a carryover from last night anyway, so had a few things that I needed to do and had a late drive till 6 o'clock, so we're at least halfway here. Got two more people, and then we're ready to rock and roll. For those of you that drove today, excellent job. Good start to our driving. I was very pleased with how everything went today. For those of you that haven't scheduled a drive time, remember I do have drive time Saturday morning. I believe now I have 8, 9, and 10 open. So let's try to sign up. I'll take a look at Monday. I believe I have some time. I didn't look at it, but I know we don't have class on Monday night, so we'll have to schedule some times for Monday and Tuesday. So we're trying to drive about every 3 or 4 days. That's the optimum thing. Some of you that have study halls, I'd like to try to lock you in. That way we know that we've got scheduled drive times and we know when we're going to be done. You're close to getting your 40 hours done anyways with some of you that drove today, so it would be better for us to approach it that way. Remember, if you don't have Facebook, keep reminding me about homework and quiz links. I'll try to get those out to you. You had your worksheet that was due. Some of you have handed that in, and I appreciate that. So I would like the rest of you to hand that in as soon as you can. And I think we're just about right where we need to be, although I should be seeing 8, and I'm only seeing 6. So let me take a look at my phone here. You got a few people that are stragglers, so maybe they're just finishing up their dinner. So let me get out of the music. Tonight we're going to start off with getting ready to drive. Now, one of the things that I require you to do every time that you get into the car is to do an outside check of the vehicle, and then to get in the vehicle, make sure that everything's adjusted right for you as a driver. Look at your gauges, make sure that there are no situations, and then we'll be off to drive. So the first time out driving with me, we'll probably spend about 5 minutes just kind of going over some of the things that we're going to highlight tonight. Now, with the homework that I gave you with warning lights, so I want you to write this down. Anytime that you start a vehicle and look at your instrument panel, warning lights will come on. We're so computerized now with vehicles. Back, as we said before, in older cars from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, everything was gauges. Okay, so with needles would indicate when something is getting a little bit, off balance. But now we have everything digitalized. So it's going to come up on the screen. It's going to let us know. So what I want you to write down, a red warning light that stays on needs your immediate attention. A red light that comes on and then goes off is just the computer checking the system, making sure it's okay. Once it knows it's okay, it turns it off. Case in point would be your seatbelt. Anytime that you see a yellow light, it means that you should be aware that something is being activated. Could be windshield wipers, could be cruise control. And in a hybrid, and you'll see in my car, anything that's kind of a greenish color has to do with the hybrid car and how it is actually running at the time, whether you're on battery power or gas power. So a lot of times a green light will come on indicating when you're coming in and out of a charge. So that's useful to know. So let's kind of get right into tonight's topic. We'll probably just skim into seatbelts. So I'm finding myself running over just a little bit on what I want to cover. And go to Facebook or remind me, I have a chapter review of chapter 1 that I did not link yesterday on your homework. It was just the worksheet with the gauges and symbols. So we're going to try to get on and finish that. And then I'll talk more about what's going to be for homework over the weekend. And usually over the weekend, you're going to probably have just a little bit more to do because it's going to be about 4 or 5 days before we have class again. So let's get right into getting ready to drive. So are you really ready to drive? What are the important steps to follow prior to moving your vehicle out on the roadway? So what I want you to write down, everyone should have a sense of direction. And what I mean is that you should know north, south, east, west, and your route numbers. Now, in the age that we're living and driving, and we talked about self-automated vehicles, GPS is awesome. It will get you to where you want to go. But remember, GPS is not foolproof, meaning that some of your minor roads, dirt roads, numbers on houses will not be indicated on your GPS. It can get you close to your destination. The other problem with GPS, if you've been with your parents at all, is that if exit numbers are very close to one another, there may be a lag in the GPS picking up your location and knowing where you exactly are. So you're going to do most of your driving, probably 80 to 90% of your driving close to where you live. And since you've lived in this area for a while, you should have a sense, maybe not knowing names or routes, but by landmarks of how to get to where you want to go. Oh, I'm probably echoing. Remember, if I'm echoing, you got to let me know. I noticed that both my microphone on my computer and my Yeti microphone that I speak into, both were being activated. So make sure you tell me. So things that you should know. When you go somewhere, what is the best, safest route to take? You don't want to waste time. You don't want to waste fuel. You don't want to put yourself in harm's way. So safety should be right at the top of the list. Second thing, if you're going to be out running errands, don't waste time. Don't put wear and tear on your vehicle. So try to be very linear in your destination from point A to B, B to A. When you start putting all these different stops in, you're going to be going around in circles, which will take you more time and waste more gas. And lastly, if you don't have a GPS, don't feel like you can't ask for directions. Be smart, because it is common for people to get lost in their car. I always find it's a very humorous story if people live in an area and they don't have GPS and they find themselves 20 miles, 30 miles from where they're going. But they're too proud to pull in someplace like a Dunkin' Donuts or something and ask how to get somewhere. They'd rather just drive and try to figure it out on their own. Well, that doesn't always turn out okay. So make sure, ask for directions. When you get ready to drive, and this includes driving with me, we all have good days and bad days. So some of the things that could come into play when you're behind the wheel of a car, are you tired? Are you the influence of, now I'm not talking just illegal drugs, I'm talking about legal drugs, like medications that were given to you prescribed by a doctor. Remember, there are side effects. Even over-the-counter drugs, like for allergies, for colds. Sometimes we'll have something that will make you drowsy. That's probably not the best thing to be on if you're going to be driving for a few hours. Body ailments, I mean, as if you've played sports and you've tweaked your ankle, tweaked your shoulder, your wrist, you're going to remember that the way that you move your body will affect the way you move your car, because you're going to be too sensitive when you feel pain in your arms or your legs, and you may not operate the pedals or the steering wheel the way that you normally do. And something is probably self-explanatory is depression and excitement does come into play. I think excitement is something that we can all relate to. And I think music, and I drove with a driver today, and we had a little bit of music on. And I don't mind listening to music low when we drive. And she's a good driver, and we're near the end of our driving. It's our 8th time out. But I could tell that she started to move a little bit. Okay, she liked the music. That's fine, and that's good. But I have a feeling if I wasn't in the car, we would be playing that music a little bit louder. And with louder music, usually that means you're going faster. It just seems to be that correlation of loud music, fast driving. Not always the best thing. And then on the flip side, people that are very sad and depressed will be missing signs, pedestrians, traffic lights, because you're focused on the pain of something. If someone told you that someone just hit your dog, and you're at work, you got a text message from your brother or whatever, I'm telling you, your ride home from work is not going to be a good one. Okay? You're going to probably miss signs. You're going to miss traffic lights because you're going to be grieving. You're going to be depressed. So you got to remember, the way that you feel does affect the way that you drive. So always try to come to drive the best physical and emotional state that you can be in. Weather will play a major factor. And a lot of people, one of the classes that I had this summer, someone texted me. They were going to drive in about 2 or 3 hours. And they said, it's going to rain at 3 o'clock. Are we still going to drive? And I text back, well, yeah, because you're going to get a license that says you can drive in all type of situations. So you're not getting a license that says you can only drive in sunshine. Of course we're going to drive in the rain. Now, some of the winter weather, I will admit, probably won't be the best to be driving in. And there are times where you probably shouldn't be driving. But you should learn and train in every type of weather. Rain, fog, snow, darkness, sleet, ice. Just to get a feel for what it's like to be behind the wheel of a car. Now, you're in probably one of the worst driver's ed classes that you could schedule yourself to be in. Because if you go back 6 months from when you probably could start driving, there wasn't snow on the ground. We're going to do all our driving and hopefully be done by the end of October. They probably won't be snow on the ground. So when is your first experience going to be driving in winter weather? Not with a parent and not with an instructor. You're going to be all by yourself, defend your way to get to school or to get home. That could be difficult. So being in this class this time of year, you don't have that benefit of any experience with anybody driving in bad weather. So be smart, take good notes. Hopefully what we talk about will help you when you're all by yourself. And by the way, people think this is strange. But at any point in your driving career, and I'm talking like 4 years from now, if you ever have a driving question, and for some reason, if I'm still in your phone or if you go to Facebook, my number's still always there, I will never not respond to a student. I still get text messages from previous students about questions. I can still remember watching a movie on a Saturday night, probably at 10:30 at night, and I got a text message from a student, Mr. Toll, I forgot the steps of how to change a tire. Can you help me out? Sure I can. Sure I can. So please feel free to always reach out if you ever have a question. Now, the worst questions that people ask me is, Mr. Toll, I just got a ticket. What's going to happen? I kind of forgot what's going to happen. So I kind of talk them through probably what's going to happen with the DMV and the courts. And I feel bad. And they feel bad probably texting me because they did something that they weren't supposed to do behind the wheel of a car. But I don't mind helping you out. Okay? So I'm always here for you for a source of information. Traffic conditions, and this is more or less for people that are just beginning to drive. Be very careful about doing a lot of practice driving in heavy volume. if you're not up to it. So I put down before school, after school, anytime people are going to work or coming home from work, and holidays will always have high volume of traffic. So what I would recommend is stay away from these times if you're learning to drive, to have a more enjoyable and relaxed drive. Once you get really comfortable with driving, by all means, jump right into some of the worst driving. You're going to be driving these times anyways, once you get your license. But I always find it difficult to explain to parents is that I know you've got to get the 40 hours in, but be very careful about putting your son or daughter in a situation where they physically and mentally can't handle it, because it may not be a good experience for them or for you. So that's basically what I'm trying to convey here. This is the driver's ed vehicle. So some of you saw this today. I usually do park in this position out front of the high school. I like to meet my students at the high school because I'm usually picking up one, dropping one off. But if you've got studies or lunch and you live close by, as today, I have no problem at all coming to get you. But remember, I do have to drop other people off. So sometimes 10 to 11 may be, a little bit before 10 to a little bit before 11. So just keep that in mind. And remember, if you do text me about, Mr. Toll, where are you? I could be driving towards you, so I will not be responding. Now, I do have an iWatch that I can talk into, but I try not even to do that. So whenever you go to drive a vehicle that has been sitting for at least a couple hours, you should always make a quick look around. So go to the front, kind of peek to the right side, peek to the left, and kind of do a walk around, kind of do an inspection, just like a pilot would do to an airplane, just to make sure that everything is, ready to go. It'd be terrible if a pilot didn't do checks before he put the plane up in the air, and then he said, man, I forgot to check whatever. Geez, I wish I would have done that. And all of a sudden a warning light comes on. That'd be pretty scary. Same thing in a car. We take for granted that because we drove it there, when we come back in 2 or 3 hours, it's going to be okay to drive again. Not necessarily the truth. So what are some of the things that we'd be looking for? Are your tires properly inflated? Now, without actually using a tire pressure gauge, you really don't know that for sure. But if your tire is flat, you definitely will know that. Make sure no one has broken your lights. Make sure there aren't fluids leaking out from underneath the vehicle. Do you still have your license plate on? By the way, you have to have a license plate legally in New Hampshire on the front and back. Now, in some states, you just needed it on one part of the vehicle, either the front or the back. But New Hampshire is a state where it has to be on both. Windows, are they cracked? Did someone try to break into the back of your vehicle? And I want you to write down the term carjacking. Carjacking is where someone tries to get into your vehicle while you're in it. The easiest car to steal is a car that's already running, right? I mean, you don't have to start it. It's already started. You just point a knife or a gun at somebody and tell them to get out or drive me to where I want to go, and they get their wishes met. Don't try to be a hero and fight people that have carjacked you. But one way to prevent this is to make sure that your car doors are locked the minute you get into your vehicle. I mean, within seconds, you should always do it. Now, with carjacking, you can write this down. Where does it usually take place? Parking lots, gas stations, stop signs, traffic lights. These are places where you're getting in and out of your vehicle frequently. And a lot of times we put our guard down. We don't even realize that there are people around our vehicle. And by the way, we weren't carjacked, but we did have somebody in downtown Dover try to get into the back of the driver's ed car. We were at a stop sign, and he tried to get in the back seat. No lie, it happened. And I had an observer sitting behind the driver, and she was freaking out. She was screaming, "Mr. Toll, someone's trying to get in the car." Well, it was Halloween night, so, we're getting close to Halloween. And I think the guy was a drunk. I think he was intoxicated. And I think he thought the yellow sign on top of my car meant we were a taxi. And he thought he wanted a ride. So I don't think he was trying to do any harm, but he was trying to get inside. But a lot of times people will do harm. So make sure you just give it up. Let me show you a clip from, I believe, Georgia, about someone that tried to take a car at a gas station.
This noon, a developing story out of Kalamazoo County. One man is dead, another arrested for the shooting and carjacking. 24-hour News 8's Tony Tagliavia is working this story. He's on the phone right now with new information. Tony?
Afternoon, Emily. Investigators tell us the victim has died. He's identified as a 47-year-old man from the Vicksburg area. Police say he was shot around 5:30 this morning at the Shell station in downtown Augusta when investigators say a man tried to take the car he was riding in. Police tell us the suspect then tried to take another car but failed and ran away. He ran on foot. Investigators caught up to him about a half-mile north of town. They were able to take him into custody. We talked with the Augusta police chief, who was among the law enforcement officers who took him into custody. He says he's glad they were able to take him in relatively soon after the shooting, but of course still sad to hear the news that the victim in this case has died. Police also caught the gun. That's something that they're thankful for, worried that kids in the area might have come across it. We don't know if the suspect in this case will appear in court today. We're going to stay in touch with investigators to try and learn more about that. Neighbors we talked to say...
Okay, kind of sad that someone lost their life from carjacking. I thought it was kind of interesting when they said, if you can remember at the beginning part of this newscast, that he tried to take a car and didn't, and he went to a different vehicle. I still believe that the reason why he didn't initially take the first car that he tried to steal is that he looked inside and it was a manual transmission and he didn't know how to drive it. Kind of tough to steal a car if you can't drive it. You're not going to get very far. Another reason why you check around your vehicle, write this down, is small animals, especially cats. Cats love to get to places that are protected and warm. So if you have a cat, what you should probably do is just tap the side of your vehicle a few times just to scare it, make sure that it's not inside the engine compartment, especially large trucks have some big gaps where they squeeze by. And depending on where you live, you may want to look underneath your vehicle. Never know when you're going to find an alligator if you're living in Florida. Wouldn't that be scary to get inside your vehicle and have that nipping at your ankles? So check around your vehicle, underneath, all around. Make sure that's safe to get in. Okay, so we're inside the vehicle now. We've already made our pre-checks. There's no carjackers. By the way, with carjackers, and I just skipped over it, keep your keys in your hand. Most keys now have a buzzer, some type of an alarm that would scare people away. Keys can also be used to, mark up somebody's face or arm. So you're not going to, seriously hurt somebody, but you may make some recognition. So if they find the person, yeah, I kind of scraped him on his neck. And if he's got a mark on his neck, that's probably the guy. So use your keys to help protect yourself. So you're inside the vehicle. First thing you should do is lock the doors. That's one thing that we mentioned. By locking your doors, you do two things. One, you don't allow people to get inside your vehicle. And two, if you're involved in a crash, it makes the side of your car a little bit more rigid. Windows that are down or doors will go open in a car crash. And if the car rolls over, there's a chance if you're not in your seatbelt, you're going to get thrown from your vehicle. If you keep your car locked, it's a little harder for the doors to pop open in a crash. Second thing, write down, adjust your seat. Okay, I want you to move the seat forward, back, up, or down. You want to be very comfortable. You want to be able to rest your wrist on the top of the steering wheel when your back is firmly laid back. Let me get out of here so you can see it. So if the top of my mic is the steering wheel, my wrist is right on the top of the steering wheel. That way you're going to have proper balance with your steering. You need to have a slight bend to your elbow. And I may show you the video a little bit later tonight that I did when I first made this channel about getting ready to drive. So I'm going to go through this real quick, and I'll probably pop that on. Seatbelts, just make sure everybody's belted in the car. And that's a law that if anybody is under the age of 18, of course, they have to be in a seatbelt. But you should make it a prerogative of anybody that wishes to drive with you. Tell them, I don't care if you're 19, 32, or 62. If you're in the car, I want everybody in a seatbelt, because you are legally responsible for everybody. Meaning that if you are in a car crash, their injuries are on your insurance, are on your time clock. So make sure people are safe. Make sure that they're in their seatbelts. So I tell people, you don't want to put it on, then you're walking. Adjust your mirrors. Rear view mirror should see as much as the back window as you possibly can. So, a little bit of the back headrest or a little bit of the back post is not bad, but you want to see as much window as possible. You want to open up your field of vision from the sides. And then your side mirrors, you should see a little bit of the side of your vehicle in the mirror, okay? It gives a relationship between where your car is to where the other vehicles. In this case, it is a van. So take time to have that adjusted correctly. Now, if you take a look at the rearview mirror in this one, you can see the truck to the left, you can see the car to the right. So it's kind of overlapping. And if we were to take a look at a graph, you could see that the dotted line of the orange line, the dotted of the blue line, that is where your side mirrors allow you to see. So you don't see the car directly behind you, but you do see the cars that are off to the left or to the right. What they're trying to make people do now is to push your side mirrors out a little bit further so you don't see the side of your car. Now, I understand it. I don't mind it. I'm still a traditionalist. I still like this way because it reinforces what you see in your rear view mirror, and then you see it again in your side view mirror. So I always like starting out students this way, and then as we get closer to our 8th, 9th, 10th hour driving, if you want to push the mirrors all the way out and do it this way, okay, now you don't see anything that you see in your rearview mirror. Your side mirrors are totally what's off to the side, and you don't see what's in your rearview mirror. So they basically just overlap what your rearview mirror does. How can you control the movement of your vehicle? Ignition switch, transmission, and clutch, if you have a standard. You got to learn how to grab a steering wheel. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. And then, of course, your accelerator or brake. There are still students that I have, and if you happen to be one, if you get the gas and the brake mixed up, it happens to all of us. Hopefully, we're not going to have it in a situation where we could hit somebody. But you really do have to know where these pedals are. And you do have to have a basic concept of turning. Because if you can't grip the steering wheel and make the car go where you want it to go, driving is going to be very difficult, and you're never going to be comfortable. You may think that this is pretty straightforward, but you'd be surprised how many people don't know every letter and what it stands for on the gear selector. So let's go through it real quick. I think we know what park is. That's what we put our car in to start. So when we're done driving, we put the car in park, and then we turn it off. We start the car in park. Now, the only other gear that you can be in to start a car is neutral. So a car will start in neutral as well as park. You try to put the gear shift in reverse or drive and turn the ignition, won't start. So I used to freak students out when I used to have a key for my driver's ed car. I would purposely leave the car in reverse. And when they would come out and try to turn the key to start the car, it just wouldn't turn over. And they thought for sure they did something wrong. Look at your gear selector. Because sometimes people will turn the car off while they're still in gear. A little bit more difficult to do that with the push starts now. Of course, R is for reverse, for backing up. N is for neutral. That's your out of gear position. That's where you can start the car in neutral, as I said before. And of course, D is for drive. And that's the gear that we're normally going to be in when we're doing about probably 90% of our driving. The other would be 10% in reverse. Now, just below drive, and most people don't know this, and I quizzed someone today when they were driving, what is L1, L2, or in the driver's car, it's B. What is that? Why would you have another gear besides drive? If drive makes you go forward and reverse makes you go backwards, why do I need another gear? Well, this gear is for delivering more torque, more power to your tires. So if you're towing something, or it helps as a braking force if you're going down a hill and you're a little bit concerned about losing contact with the roadway with just your brakes slowing down, put it into a lower gear, low 1, low 2, and you're going to have better control of your car. And you won't, overuse your brake pedal. So there's the gear select in the driver's ed car. You've got to have your foot on the brake. You got to bring it over to the right and use the positions that we have mentioned right there. So that's the gear selector. And every car is slightly different. Now with the steering wheel, you should always have both hands on the wheel. But let me tell you this. If anybody tells you that you have to have both hands on your wheel when you drive, it's a lie. Okay? There's going to be times, you should have both hands on the wheel for doing like 99% of your driving. But I don't want, I've had people ask me, Mr. Toll, can I scratch my forehead? Well, of course you can. Or you've got to rub your eye. You're going to take your hands off the steering wheel at times. Well, think about it. If you have a manual transmission, you have to take your hand off the steering wheel to shift. So there is no law about hand position for driving, but it is a technique, and we find that certain techniques, and what I've got here for hand position of like a face of a clock, 8 and 4, 9 and 3, 10 and 2, is what's preferable. But if you were to grab it at 1 o'clock and 8 o'clock, both hands are on the wheel, but they're kind of offset. Personally, I really don't have a problem with that. If you're tracking the car down the road correctly and you're making decent turns. The most important, I always tell people, especially fellow driving instructors, there is no way that you can be outside of a vehicle and see a car approaching you and see a car make a turn and know what their hand position is. There's no way you can tell looking at a car how they're grabbing the wheel. But you can look at a car and see that they're drifting over a line, or they're making a turn and they make it too wide or too short. And you could say, well, that was a bad turn. Then you got to start thinking, well, why was it a bad turn? Then maybe it was probably hand position, or maybe it was speed. But it's very hard to tell when someone's driving what they're doing to the steering wheel. And by the way, I don't know if I can ever find this clip again, but did you know that people that are paraplegic and quadriplegic can actually drive a vehicle? Guess what? They don't have use of their hands. How are they driving the car? They're finding other ways, with toggle switch, using their mouth. It's incredible what they can do with cars now, to make them go forward and turn with people that have handicaps or disabilities, I should say. Airbags in the middle and tilt position. No one's asked me about that. The 3 people that drove today, I guess they were pretty comfortable with the position. But we can move the steering wheel up, down, in, and out. It's multi-directional, so we can always put the steering wheel where we have best position. And the horn, I will almost bet out of the 8 of you that are driving with me that no one is going to use the horn. So in your notes, I want you to write down, the horn is a communication device. When you feel that either a pedestrian, bicyclist, or a car that could be backing out of a parking spot, especially downtown, does not see you, I would like you to tap the horn. Tap. I'm not talking about blaring the horn where it's a show of disgust. The reason why you use your horn is to stop a car from moving out towards you, or for a pedestrian or a bicyclist to turn their head to look at you. Don't ever drive in a situation where you go, oh, I hope they see me. Well, guess what? They may not. If they don't see you, they can hear you. So use your horn. It's there for a reason. You may want to use it to wave at friends, but technically, It's to warn people that you're coming. Now, I couldn't find this clip. This is my wife, by the way. With backing up, I highly recommend if you're backing up like 30, 40 feet, you can use your side mirrors. It's helpful, your rear view mirror. Now we even have backup cameras. But you should learn how to look over your shoulder and look down the middle part of the car when you're backing for a distance straight. When you start to move to the right or move to the left, that's when the side mirrors come into play. So those of you that drove today, at least a few of you, you know your second time out, we're going to be working on backing. I want to see how you back up straight, how you back to the right, how you back to the left, how you use your mirrors. So that's something that we're going to be working on. Hand over hand, basically you lead with the hand opposite of the turn. So if you're making a left-hand turn, you're going from 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock. The left hand crosses over, grips the wheel at 1 or 2, finishes the turn. When you make a right-hand turn, the left hand starts at 9, goes to 3, right hand crosses over, grabs the wheel, and finishes the turn. I'm a big proponent of hand over hand. I know a lot of people, driving instructors, they want you to do push-pull. I get it. The airbag can come out, and if your hand is being crossed over, your hand is being forced back at you at a high rate of speed, could break your nose. But I'd rather make a good turn and not have the airbag come out than to make a bad turn with push-pull and say, hey, at least the airbag came out and my hand didn't break my nose. But you're going to find different ways. I'm a combination of push-pull and hand over hand. So find what works for you. So push-pull is where you grab down at 8 and 4, and you just make small increments to the left or to the right. It's kind of a shuffle, and that's why I don't like it, because at speeds of like 15, 20 miles per hour, it's too choppy, I find. I find it around 10 to 12, 15 miles per hour. Hand over hand is more beneficial. But we'll see. We'll see what you like. Write down in your notes, dead pedal. Most people do not realize there's a piece of plastic just to the left of the brake, and that is what we call the dead pedal. And that's where you rest your left foot. And the reason why you have it there, I'm going to get out of here for a second, is to push your back up against the seat. Because when you're making a turn, and if you're turning too fast, your body is going to lean. And if your body is leaning and the airbag comes out, the airbag's right here. You want the airbag to come out right here. So by pushing on that dead pedal, you're more upright. And if I show you the video that I did, it'll make more sense. So there's the dead pedal, that piece of plastic. Okay, let me give you some definitions that I want you to write down. Some of these will be on your midterm, so please write this down. Now remember, if I go too fast, and there's kind of a lag between the comments that you put on YouTube or on your phone than what I'm talking, you can always go back, just make a note, look at what the clock says, and then go back to it to write it. So light acceleration, and you don't have to write everything here. Just put down it's light, slight pressure being applied to the gas pedal to move you forward to make a smooth start at a stop sign or a traffic light. Okay, so you don't want, if you feel the car kind of kick in a little bit too much, it means you push down too much. You want to kind of glide in the car. You want everything to be smooth. So light acceleration is from stop signs, traffic lights, very smooth. Now, once you get beyond that light acceleration, now you're pushing the pedal a little harder to get up to speed. So progressive acceleration is a steady increase of pressure on the pedal till you get to the speed that you want. Once you get to that speed that you want, you've got to learn how to maintain that pressure. And for those of you that drove today and I took you out to Lee, you know that I took you on a lot of windy roads and very hilly roads. And one of the reasons is I wanted to see how you could handle the driver's ed vehicle and maintain good speed, constant speed. And you did a really good job today. I didn't see real, high speeds or really low speeds. So you were pretty consistent. So that was good to see. Cover brake is one of the most important things. Now, when someone tells me they've done a lot of driving, I will always look at how they do cover brake. Okay, cover brake is when you use the ball of your foot to hover over the brake pad when you think something's going to happen. So when I see someone go off the accelerator and go to the brake pedal but don't use it, I know they think something's going to be happening. And that is a plus. That is a student that I can believe that they see traffic situations changing. They're not quite comfortable with, but they're getting ready for it. Other students stay on the gas pedal regardless if there's bikes, pedestrians, lights changing. They just don't get off that gas pedal. Okay, not the best. And then they got to stomp on the brake real hard to stop the car. Control braking. This is a firm, steady, even pressure on the brake pedal. Put down normal braking. This is what you would use in non-emergency situations. So your stop signs, traffic lights. And try not to have the vehicle pitch forward too much. Okay? Now, a pitch, let me get out of here for a second. Pitching is when the vehicle goes forward. So right now, I'm going to move my body forward. So I go forward, and then it comes back. That's a pitch. So when you see a car and it goes forward, and then it comes back, that's what we call a resting stop. Okay, that's what we want. Now, some people in some driving schools will always make you count to 3 before you can move from a stop. So you think you've come to a stop, they want you to go 1, 2, 3, or by thousands, I don't know. But what I want you to do, as long as you can feel the car dip forward, okay, so it dips forward and then it comes back, I know it's a resting stop. Now, while it's doing this, okay, at a stop sign, I want to see you do this. I want to see you look left, right, left. Okay, so write that down. Left, right, left. At every stop sign, whether you're turning left, right, straight, you have to make the sequence of left, right, left. You will always be hit from the left first. That is where your first check should be. Then you look to the right. Could be pedestrians, could be bikes, could be rollerbladers, whatever. Even if you're going straight. So left, right, left. And then you do what you want to do. And guess what? When you do those checks, guess how many seconds it takes? So I don't have you count out loud. I just see what you do with your head. Okay? So that's what we do in the driver's ed car with me. Now, what is a limousine stop? A lot of people have seen this little bullet here and they get kind of confused. If you've ever been in a limousine, you know that they train their drivers to be very smooth with their accelerations and their stops because they're being hired to bring people around. And a lot of times they'll have food or be doing business in the back seat. And you don't want people to, drop their computer or to drop a drink or spill a drink. So what they teach a limousine driver is about 5 to 10 feet before they want to stop. They make believe that they're going to stop at that point. Let's say it's 10 feet. And just before they come to a stop at that area, they let go of the brake pedal and then they go up a little bit further to do their reality stop, where they really wanted to stop. And that's what we call a limousine stop. So they take a lot of the speed away, a lot of the heavy pitching forward away, the last 5 to 10 feet, and then they let the car just creep up a little bit, and then they reapply the brake for a full stop at the sign or at the line. Okay, and it's very, very smooth. I mean, when you really get good at it, you can barely feel the car pitching at all. So try it out. Do it with your parents' car. Do it in the driver's ed car. See if you can make the car do a limousine stop. Trail braking is light decrease of pressure on the brake pedal, and it's used in the following situation. So I want you to write this down. We just talked about the limousine stop. It's the last few seconds. Backing up in reverse out of a driveway, you're going to be pushing on the brake, letting up, pushing on the brake, letting up as you move the car further and further down the driveway. Maybe you're in heavy traffic, so inching forward, you're going to be trail braking, pushing the brake on, taking the foot off, pushing back on, trailing the brake off. Moving up in a parking spot or at the beginning of a turn from a stop would be all trail braking. Always be cautious. Always think safety first. So use of the brake is much more important to be good at that than being good with the accelerator. Now, threshold braking, what I want you to write down is emergency braking, maximum force. So a child runs out in front of you. You don't want to hit the child. You're hitting that brake. Hitting that brake is hard as you can. As hard as you can. And remember, you cannot break the brake. Makes sense, doesn't it? You can't break the brake. So hit it as hard as you can. And usually most cars are equipped now with ABS, so write this down, anti-lock braking systems, which means that as you apply full pressure, the brake pedal is going to sense that, and it's going to alleviate some of the pressure from the pad and allows you to turn the wheel. If you don't have ABS, you can lock up your brakes and you can't steer. So that's not good for skidding. So maximum brake pressure with being able to steer with ABS is a plus for getting out of skids. And we'll talk more about that in another class. Accelerator and brake. The brake is the most important pedal, as I just mentioned. It keeps you from going where you don't want to go. And I have found that most people, if they've done a lot of driving, can really get used to a different type of a car within about 10 or 15 minutes. So also remember that both pedals can make you go faster or slower. So think about it. If you let go of the gas pedal, even on level ground, you are going to go slower. If you're on the brake pedal going down a hill, you let go of the brake pedal, you're going to be going faster. The same thing with the gas pedal. If you're on a hill going up a hill, you let go of the gas pedal, the car's going to go slower. So a good driver is going to know, what pedal do I need to be on to make the car do what I want it to do. So you don't necessarily have to be on the brake pedal all the time to make the car go slower. Sometimes the best thing to do is to just let go of the accelerator a little bit to make the car go slower. This is a visual scan. You can see that we've got a red light, so my passenger did not have their seatbelt on. The yellow light, it was an indicator that I needed an oil change. And then the green lights were talking about the hybrid. So this is a picture that I took from the video that I made about getting ready to drive. So you need to know all these gauges. You did this with the warning symbols, and I may go over that at a different point, but not tonight. Speedometer, of course, how fast you're going. Odometer tracks the mile the vehicle is driven. Tripometer tracks the mile the vehicle is driven over a certain period of time. This is very helpful if you're trying to figure out what your gas mileage is. Setting your tripometer to 0, drive a number of days or miles, and then fill up with gas and divide the gallons with the miles that you've driven, and you basically get how many miles to the gallon that you get. Fuel gauge, I will tell you this, that it's your responsibility to let me know when we're below half of a tank. Of course, you're not going to pay for it, but you're the driver. I want you to get in the habit of looking at the gas gauge and knowing when we're below half. The reason why I do half is that in the wintertime, you never want to run out of fuel. Condensation can take place if you have less than a half of a tank. So trying to keep it at least half to full all the time just helps. It keeps the gas just running a little bit cleaner and smoother through the gas line. Alternator gauge. Now, some of these things you probably have never heard of before, and I don't want to make it too complicated, but I do want you to have an understanding that your car that you're driving is mechanical. So like a computer, anything can break down at any time. But there's usually going to be lights or gauges to warn you that something is bad developing. So knowing when this gauge or warning light comes on is basically telling you that there's an electrical problem. Okay, so I want you to write that down. Alternator gauge, warning light, electrical problem. Of course, temperature gauge, just by the word, we have a good idea what that's going to tell us. It's telling us that we're running too hot. The engine doesn't have enough coolant going through it to keep it at an operable temperature, so it's going to get hot. So it's going to go towards the red or towards the H on your gauge. And remember, don't drive. Okay, pull over, have someone come out to you and assess the problem and help you out. And I'll talk about AAA a little bit later, but I'm a big fan of having roadside services. So I've got someone to call. They'll come out and help me out. AAA has bailed me out a few times. Not in the driver's ed car, usually my personal car. Brake warning lights, problem with the brakes. It might be brake fluid or a leak. So you're not a mechanic, but it's good to know that there's something wrong. Consider yourself lucky. Just pull over the side of the road, call for help, and get a tow. Oil pressure, this is probably one of the most important gauges to always pay attention to because it alerts you there's not enough oil pressure being pumped through the engine, and the engine's not lubricating the engine correctly. So try to stop immediately. Remember, your oil dipstick doesn't really tell you a whole lot about what's going through the engine. It just tells you when, and when you take a look at the gauge, there's going to be a mark for being empty or low, and then a gauge for being full or high. So you want to keep it between those two marks. But your oil, besides your gasoline, is really the lifeblood of your vehicle. So other than gasoline, of course, you need gas to move the car, to start the car. But just as important is that if you don't have oil lubricating your metal parts in your engine will seize up, and you're going to do thousands. The thing about running out of gas, you run out of gas, someone gets you gas, they put it in the gas tank. It usually starts right up. There's no more, worry. It's more of a hassle. You don't have oil in your car circulating at the right amount and pressure, you're going to do thousands of dollars of damage to your engine. You're going to blow your engine. Let me show you. Let me get out of here for a second. The best way I can explain about how oil works is what I want you to do right now is to take your hands and rub them together. Can you feel the heat? Can you feel the heat build up? That is metal parts in your engine. And oil goes between those metal parts and allows them to go up and down smoothly. The minute there is not enough oil in your car, that metal gets extremely hot, and then it basically just sticks together. It's what we call seizes the engine. Okay, not a good thing. And oil is a pretty cheap thing to do. Oil is going to cost you probably about $4 to $6 a quart. And like I said, an engine that seizes on you, it's going to be thousands of dollars worth of damage. So take the time to check your oil. I wanted to do that as a worksheet, but I think we're going to move that to a different time in our class. So we'll be doing that a little bit later. And I think that might be the last definition. Let me see what else we got. Oh, by the way, in comments, on the phone or in your YouTube here channel, what I want you to write down is please indicate what color are your backup lights, okay? So please comment on YouTube or on the phone right now that you're listening, and I want to see what you write down. What color are your backup lights, okay? Now, heat and air is usually on the center console. Your radio is going to be there. Bluetooth is going to probably be somewhat connected to that, so that's important. So read your owner's manual. Get familiar with your vehicle. Know what is happening around your car. Let's see how many people caught. So far, so good. Very good. You're going to probably be the first class. Oh, Julian. White lights. White lights are your backup lights. Okay? Red is for braking. And I always trick people, and I was going to see who I was going to trick. You can't have brake lights and backup lights being the same color. So colors mean something, and we'll talk more about that. Knobs and levers, headlights, windshield wipers. I find that most people screw up using the windshield wipers in the driver's ed vehicle because they have an American car. Mine's an import, and my car, you go down with the lever. With American cars, you tend to turn the lever to put your wipers on. So be familiar with the car that you're driving. And the thing is, you're basically building muscle memory. And I can't tell you how many times people go, oh, I thought I was in my parents' car. That's why I turned the knob rather than pull the knob down. So it's a pretty common problem when it snows or rains that people put on the wrong speed for the wipers. And that's what we had for homework. So I'm going to kind of get right out of that. I'm going to throw this up. Hold on just a second. I'm going to put this up right here. Whoop. You're not seeing that. Let me do it this way. Okay, here we go. If you need some help with what we went over for tonight, in my YouTube channel, okay, under Peace, Love, and Safe Driving, if you go to videos, the very first video I did, this is the video that I did, and this is basically what we've just covered. Oh, there's an echo? Thank you. I knew that was going to happen. Okay, hopefully that takes care of the echo. So this is the video that I want you to watch, and you could do that over the weekend. It's about 25 minutes, 26 minutes if you go through the introduction. And it gives you some idea about the driver's ed vehicle. So if you haven't driven yet or haven't driven much, I would recommend taking a look at this. It's what we just covered. So just kind of scan through it. I kind of go a little bit more involved in a few things, but I really don't want to spend any more time tonight on that. So I'm going to get out of this and give you a chance to do that on your own. So let me get back to my regular screen, and let's get into seatbelts, airbags, and helmets. So I want you to write this down. So what is the real story behind seatbelts, airbags, and helmets? They're safety devices that were put into vehicles, and what they recommend for people to do with motorcycles is to increase the chances of survival in a serious crash and to lessen any type of injury that you may have. So we're going to just spend a little bit of time looking at seatbelts, airbags, and helmets. And like I said, I'm going to give you a worksheet. Is there still an echo? Let me see. Sometimes I can't see. Okay, I see what someone wrote. Okay, never mind. I was just trying to read a text message. Can you believe back in the 60s, this is our way of making sure our children were going to be safe? I'm sure if you showed this picture to your parents or your grandparents, they would get a chuckle out of this. They're probably not your parents, probably your grandparents. They would say, oh, I definitely remember that. But if you take a look at that picture, there is no way that even that little Velcro strap or whatever they have at the bottom holding that baby has nothing up near her chest. That baby is going to still do a header right into that metal bar in any type of quick stop or crash. And to be in the front like that, not the best place to be. Okay, we've come a long way with safety devices, but you can just take a look at that and go, oh, it's amazing that my grandparents lived through that time, right? Actually, a lot of times parents would actually hold kids. So let's take a look at who's least likely to wear a seatbelt. What we have found through taking surveys, and New Hampshire just got done doing one, and I'm trying to get the results from it. Some of my previous students were involved in taking the survey. But what we have found that young adults between the ages of 18 and 24 are less likely to wear a seatbelt than those of an older age. and mostly men, okay, more than women, hate wearing seatbelts. And there are many reasons why people, if you were to ask somebody, most people would say uncomfortable, I'm only going a short distance, I'm a good driver. Women sometimes says it wrinkles their clothes. But there's usually some underlying reason why. And one of the things I'm going to want you to do, and I think we're going to save it for next week, is, and if you look at your course outline, when I talk about seatbelts, airbags, and helmets, that there's a project. So we're going to do some type of a project around, and it's really to persuade people to wear a seatbelt or to wear a helmet or to make sure that they buy a car that has a good safety rating and airbags. So we're going to do something with either a poster, a radio ad, or a video ad, but that's going to probably be later. It won't be for this weekend. We also find that most people in the city, in a non-metropolitan area, less likely. So I guess in the city, you just think that, there's so much traffic, I better wear it. But if you live out in the country, why bother? You may not see a car at all when you're driving down some of these back roads. And state laws, seatbelt use in lower states with secondary enforcement seatbelt laws or no seatbelt laws compared to states with primary enforcement. There's definitely an increase. And we'll talk a little bit about primary and secondary in just a moment. And also, people in the back have a tendency not to. They think the people in the front are the ones that are required to do it. So what does the United States look like if we were to take a look at usage? And the lowest usage, and New Hampshire is amongst the lowest, so you can see where the color coding is. And this is about 8 years old. We're very low. And we're one of the few states that does not have a mandatory seatbelt law. And by the way, they're thinking about changing that. We're getting to the point where enough people are in office to think that it's time. It's time to pass a bill. So probably, I would not be surprised in the next year or two that we're going to see a seatbelt law for everybody. So write down primary and write down secondary. All right. So let me explain it, because when you go from state to state, it's going to be a little bit different. A primary law would be an example of speeding, failing to stop at a red light or a stop sign. So if you do any of those things, does police have the right to pull you over and give you a ticket just for doing that? But a secondary law, which seatbelts is in most states, that they have to pull you over for a primary. So if you look at the very bottom paragraph, it says, however, some types of secondary offenses, which seatbelts would be, can also be primary offenses in certain situations. For example, in some states, whether a seatbelt violation is primary or secondary offense depends on the age of the person who's not wearing a seatbelt. If the person not wearing a seatbelt is younger than 18, then it's primary, which we are. Okay, you have to be in a seatbelt. Otherwise, it is going to be a secondary offense. So in some states, and I believe Connecticut might be one, they have to pull you over for like a violation of running a stop sign. So they pull you over for that, but they notice that you don't have your seatbelt on, so now it becomes 2 tickets. But if you were just driving without your seatbelt on in Connecticut, then they can't pull you over for that. There has to be another reason why they pulled you over. So that's how that works, secondary and primary laws. So what's the impact? So what do the numbers basically tell us is that if you're wearing a seatbelt, I mean, it doesn't take a scientist to really figure this out, so I don't know why they have to do these big studies, but guess what? If you wear your seatbelt, you're more likely to live through the crash. They say in 2016, 15,000 lives would have been saved. I mean, that's a lot. It's a lot of people. And of course, airbags provide added protection, but there are no substitute for seatbelts, meaning that if you're driving too fast around a corner and you're not in a seatbelt, you may be pushed out of your seat when the airbag comes out. So what good is the airbag? You have to be in your seat for the airbag to be beneficial. So it's a combination of both those. And really, we find that enforcement does make a difference. When we know that someone's watching us, we're more likely to do what we're supposed to do. So it does make a big difference. So that's why you see states out, basically at stop signs, traffic lights, toll booths, seeing if people are being belted. Because we want to change people's attitudes. So what can be done to increase seatbelt use among adults? Okay, so what can states do? Consider proven strategies for increasing seatbelt use and reducing child motor vehicle injuries and deaths would include making them the primary offenses, as we just got done talking about. Making sure seatbelt laws apply to everybody, just not those in the front seat. So right now, a lot of states, it's just the people in the front, none in the back. And I'm going to show you a video in a moment about people that are in the back and what happens to them when they bounce around. Fines for not wearing a seatbelt to make it where people will change their attitude. So when you do the poster, do the ad, do the video, include, what a fine would be in certain states. That might be a good suggestion for some of you to do. And make sure that police take their job seriously about enforcing it. Police hate doing this, because at times they feel it's too punitive. But if it's a law, it's a law. You should be in your seatbelt. And then, of course, educating the public, making sure that people know the importance of it. So billboards, things on the side of the highway that are flashing, patrol officers that are out with signs indicating that they're going to check for seatbelts near schools, especially high schools where people are still under the age of 18. All this is important. When you go to your doctors, a lot of times, I don't know if you've had this happen, but they ask, do you smoke? Do you drink? Do you wear your seatbelt? They're asking all these things to see what your risk factors are, to see, what's the likelihood that something could happen in the near future if you do or don't do some of these things that they ask about. Parents and caregivers have to enforce child safety restraints. I hope that your parents, when you were younger, that they made you do this. It's really important to have the support from parents. And make sure that even though it's a short trip, that you're still using a seatbelt. Here are some statistics from New Hampshire. So motor vehicle deaths, 919. And this was, I believe, from 2012. So still the same CDC bullet that was sent to us. So if you look at the bottom about the national use is 86% and New Hampshire is 69. Big difference, huh? We're way down low. And look at males. In New Hampshire, 7.3 per 100,000, and females are 2.2. That's for deaths. So more males are dying without their seatbelts on, higher than females. Females are surviving. Now, this was something that I took from a newspaper. I'm not going to get into it too much, but if you look at it real quick, it just talks about New Hampshire with the possibility of changing the law to a primary offense and to make it happen relatively soon. So it's talking about the voting record and what the fine would be. It looks like $50 fine for drivers and $25 for passengers that are with you in the car. Plus, you're going to have some what we call demerit points assessed to your license too. So you have to remember that. And notice it says New Hampshire is the only state that does not mandate adults riding in the front seat to wear seatbelts. I mean, we have a lot to be proud for. And also, we don't have a helmet law. So I guess New Hampshire really doesn't care what people do when they're on our roadways. Live free or die, right? Oh, I didn't download this video. But I did do this one. I don't usually show like gruesome videos, but I am going to show you someone that is being thrown from a vehicle. So if you look real closely, this is a highway, and I believe it's over in Europe, where a car crosses over a center line, hits a vehicle, another car hits it, and that's where I think the person gets thrown. So if you look real carefully, you'll see the person up in the air. So once we go underneath the underpass right now, watch, crosses over, now look up in the air. Okay, that's a person. This is why you still have to be on your guard when you're on a highway. Because even though you're not the one that caused the crash or involved in the crash initially, but something could be thrown, as another vehicle could be thrown into your lane, or another person. By the way, if you were in a car and that person got thrown and you hit that person as they were leaving the vehicle and coming back down, it's not your fault. So don't think that you're going to be charged with anything, but you're still going to have that gruesome memory of seeing a body come down in front of you as you hit it. And it's pretty traumatic. I've had a student tell me that she was in a car and she told me that her boyfriend, just like in this case, someone hit the pedestrian, went up in the air, and then her boyfriend hit the person as they came down. So that's, pretty bad. I do want you to write this down. Even though you're in a seatbelt, your body is still going to move. So don't think that it's a rigid, piece of, material that's keeping you pinned to your seat. As you're driving or when you're in your seatbelt, you know that you can move forward and you can move back. So the minute there's a pendulum on the side of the vehicle, a mechanism that can sense when the car is moving too quickly or stopping too quickly, and that's what's going to grab. So if you've ever pulled the shoulder harness of your seatbelt really, really quick, you can see what that does. That will activate it. So you know that there's a little bit of give and then it takes, and then it doesn't go any further. Now this is based on a 150-pound, 180-pound male. So your head's going to go the furthest distance. It's about a 1.9 foot movement, because you don't have anything keeping your head from not moving. At least with your chest, you've got the shoulder harness. So the harness is keeping your chest going 1.3 feet, and then your pelvis, which has the lap belt, is moving 1.2. So you need to understand that there's still going to be some movement of your body to the steering wheel. This is why it's important not to sit too close to the steering wheel, because you don't want this movement to bring you right up to the steering wheel, especially if you don't have an airbag. Now, if you do have an airbag, as long as you're about 11 to 12 inches away, that airbag is going to help protect you and help you ride down the impact of the crash. This is just a look at a vehicle that was hit from the side, and you can see all the damage. And you could just imagine if your left foot was over near the steering wheel here, your whole left leg is just going to be mangled. Okay, that's a car, that's an American car that wasn't built very well, not the best. So here is what it looks like inside a vehicle and what mechanisms we have to activate an airbag. So there is a sensor right near your headlights on either side of the front of your car. And remember, airbags only deploy once and only if the sensor has been activated. So with a side crash, of course, there's going to be sensors. But if you get hit from behind, There is no sensor in your rear bumper. So your airbag's not going to come out if you get hit from behind. Only front and side, because that's where your airbags are. Then you have your airbag and the venting of the pillow through the opening of the gases. You've got a head restraint that's preventing your head from whipping over the top of that. That's called ramping. We're going to see that a little bit later, probably next week, maybe not tonight. But ramping is when your head goes up over the top of the headrest and you start ripping and tearing all the muscles in your neck. That's why your head restraint should be adjusted correctly. And then you've got your shoulder harness. Okay, that should be adjusted correctly so it doesn't rub up against your neck to do any serious cutting or damages in a crash. So let's take a look at a video about airbags. And this was done in Australia. I thought they did an awful good job. This is an older video that I've got a picture of that I used to show, but I like this one a lot better. So I'm going to show you this one.
Not only does it ruin your day, but it can leave you with serious injuries, or much worse. A proliferation of people refusing to wear seatbelts in the United States back in the 70s led to car makers designing better safety systems to stop natural selection from wiping out a population. And they were called airbags. Today, airbags are one of the most common safety features you'll find in a new car. But how exactly do they work? In simple terms, airbags are tightly packed nylon bags designed to inflate within milliseconds of an impact occurring, stopping your head and body from hitting points around the vehicle like the steering wheel, windows, or other hard points which can cause serious damage. Sensors around the vehicle are able to detect an impact force, like another vehicle hitting yours, sending an electronic message to deploy whichever airbags are needed to protect occupants. The car is able to work out whether the impact is significant enough, as the force of the airbag deploying may do more harm than good in a low-speed accident. While early airbags were designed purely to protect the driver, most new cars have an array of airbags spread around the cabin to protect every occupant. The Santa Fe we have here has 6 airbags, one in the steering wheel, one in the passenger side dash, one in either of the front seats, and curtain airbags that cover all 3 rows. Again, because airbags deploy with significant force, you can do yourself serious damage if your arms get in the way or if you're simply sitting too close. Once upon a time, the correct way to hold the steering wheel was at a 10 and 2 position. But driving instructors now say the best position is a 9 and 3, so the airbags have enough room to deploy without causing serious damage by having your arms in the way. But there's more to occupant safety than just airbags. Cyclist and pedestrian detection systems are another important safety feature that you'll hear more about in the future. In the Santa Fe, it's called side exit assist. If an occupant attempts to open the door while vehicles, cyclists, or in our case, someone on a skateboard is close by, the system will sound an alarm and in some cases prevent the door from being unlocked. The system also reminds the driver to check surroundings are safe before unlocking passenger doors. If you do open the door while a hazard is detected, you'll get this warning. Finally, we have child presence detection systems. So far, Hyundai is the first car maker to introduce the tech, reminding drivers to check the rear seats before exiting the vehicle. It's called Rear Occupant Alert. The system uses sensors in the ceiling to detect movement after the vehicle has been locked. It stays active for 24 hours and will sound the car's alarm if it thinks you've left someone behind. If you've installed Hyundai's AutoLink app on your smartphone, you'll also receive a text if you haven't tended to the car alarm. Just as airbags can save you in the case of an accident, car makers are constantly developing tech like side exit assist and rear occupant alert to prevent accidents happening in the first place.
Now, some of this technology is in our cars here in America. So leaving somebody inside the car, I do not believe we actually have that right now. But detection of bikes and pedestrians off to the side, absolutely. I mean, it's incredible what we can do with technology, and it's so helpful for the driver if, for whatever reason, they were just, absent-minded to making checks and things like that. It's good to have this as a backup to bail them out in a bad situation. I know you'd find it hard to believe, but every year there's stories where people have left babies in a car or baby strapped in their car seats to the top of a vehicle, like in a car seat. I mean, how can you do that? How can you walk away and leave a child? You know, maybe if you're putting other ones in on the other side and you put one on the top. I don't know, but there are some strange stories that you'd find on the internet when it comes to people leaving children. So I want you to write down these two terms, passive and active. When it comes to restraints or any type of safety device, they're going to be in one of these two classes. Now, passive means automatic, which means that airbags would be included. Automatic belts and bolsters would be included. So just having a car with this in the car is all that you need. You don't have to do anything. Now, manual or active would be your lap belts, your shoulder belts, your combination, child restraints, putting a kid in the back seat of a car. That's something that you actively have to do. So this is where it takes some thought and some planning. All right, so this is important that you remember to make sure everybody's belted. Airbags are only effective when the seatbelt is worn, as we mentioned already tonight. Be careful about kids that are too young. Under the age of 12, the front seat probably is not the best. A lot of times, if they don't weigh a certain amount, you'll see that there's a light that comes on. Airbags will prevent head and chest injuries from not hitting the steering column or the dashboard. And this is what I want you to write down. It should be at least a minimum of 10 inches to 12 inches away from the steering wheel. I kind of like 12 inches, a little bit better than 10. But you want a little bit of room for that airbag to be deployed. And then I'll always raise your seat. Make sure that your seat is a good position in order to have the airbag be effective. And then we talked a little bit about side impact. And even on SUVs, like I said, on the roof of the vehicle. How many of you have ever ridden in a car and had your feet on the dashboard? Did you know that airbags come out at a speeds of 100 to 220 miles per hour? I mean, that is super fast. So if you were riding like this girl with her feet on the dashboard, what do you think would happen to your face? Yeah, it'd be pretty mangled. Let me show you a picture of a girl that had such a thing happen. Look at her forehead. Forever indented. Okay, not a good thing. Okay, that's gotta hurt. I can't imagine what the headaches must be like, but that's pretty bad. I can't imagine the surgeries too. I mean, you're breaking your skull at that point. So where should we wear our safety belts? Okay, snug against our hips, basically where you have your belt that holds up your pants. Adjust the center post, okay, to your height. So we're talking about the harness, the shoulder harness. Make sure that you pull on it a little bit. Make sure that it's pretty tight. Winter coats, take them off in the wintertime. Too much of a gap. There's too much play if you were involved in a crash. You're going to move forward too much. And head restraints should always meet the back of your chin. So the bottom of your chin, the bottom of the headrest. Okay, here it says ear level. I like going all the way down to the chin. That's a little bit of a better position. And then, of course, your seat distance plays a factor too. Child passenger restraints required. Children should be at least 40 inches tall to wear a shoulder harness. And a child less than 6 years of age and less than 55 inches in height shall be properly fastened, secured to passenger restraint systems that are child compliant. And of course, anyone under the age of 18 must use a seatbelt. So you need to know that, especially if you have younger brothers or sisters. I would probably write that down. So 6 years of age, younger, less than 55, make sure they're in a booster seat or some type of child compliant seat. And let me show you, we'll see one last video here tonight on children.
More than 1,000 children 12 and under die in car crashes every year, and more than 100,000 are injured. But parents can reduce the risk to their kids if they put them in an appropriate car safety seat that's correctly installed in their vehicle. When a vehicle is moving at 30 miles per hour, so is everything inside it. If the vehicle crashes, unrestrained objects keep moving at their original speed until they strike the vehicle interior. This is why infant and child car seats are so important. They hold child passengers in place as the vehicle's front end does its job of crumpling and absorbing energy. This test demonstrates something parents don't even want to think about: an unprotected infant smashing into the instrument panel. Some parents think it's okay to ride with a child on their lap, but it's not. Crashes happen so fast and are so violent that you can't protect a child this way. Frontal airbags can be especially dangerous. In a crash, an airbag can hit a child or car seat with tremendous force. Even older children shouldn't sit in the front seat. The temptation to play with the radio can put them in harm's way. Children are always safer in the back seat. The basic types of car seats are rear-facing infant seats, forward-facing child seats, convertible seats that can be used either rear or forward-facing, and booster seats for children who've outgrown their forward-facing seat but aren't big enough for adult seat belts. Consider your child's age and size when picking out a car seat, and whether it's compatible with your vehicle's seat and seat belts. Not all car seats will fit well into your vehicle. Proper installation has always been a struggle, but it is getting easier. Since September 2002, passenger vehicles are required to have special anchors, and most car seats have to be made with attachments that fit into them. This system is called latch. Lower attachments mate with anchors in the seat. Anchor points are usually marked. For forward-facing seats, top tethers get attached to anchors on the rear shelf or on vehicle seat backs. Car seats and vehicles without latch are still safe if you use the vehicle's belt system correctly. In order to do this in some vehicles, you may need to use a locking clip. Keep in mind, a car seat that fits easily into one vehicle may not fit very well, if at all, into another. Before you buy a car seat, try it in your vehicle to be sure it's compatible and can be tightly secured. Also, be sure to read the seat and vehicle owner's manuals to make installation go more smoothly. In some communities, you can check the installation at county checking stations, police or fire stations, car dealerships, or hospitals. If you're in a severe crash, inspect your child's car seat. If there's visible damage, you'll need to replace it. Remember, your child's safety is up to you. Always be sure he or she is properly buckled in without fail, every ride.
So as you can see, that there are multiple types of seats as a child gets older. So make sure that you use the appropriate seat at the right age and at the correct weight limit. And also place the child at the best place. Now, I would highly recommend, they did just the infant, probably less than 12 months old, they put in the middle facing backwards. I would put all my children, well, if you have multiple children, only one could go into each seatbelt, but regardless of age, if you only have one child, always put them in the middle. The reason why you want to always put them in the middle is because any side impact, whether it be left or right, the car is going to start to crunch in. So being in the middle is going to make you the most protected. When you start going to the right side or to the left side of the vehicle, depending if you're hit on that side, even though you're in a seatbelt, there is going to probably be some type of damage. So make sure that you do that. I just clipped that. I want to write down, I'm going to try to get out of this for a second, so just hold on a brief second. I want to write something down and then put it on the screen, on the screen. Can't even speak anymore. And by the way, I still want people to sign up for driving on Saturday in the morning. So please, if you can drive at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and 10 o'clock. So I've got, I think, 3 spots, 8, 9, and 10. And then also if you can drive Monday or Tuesday in the afternoon. I want you to write this down in your notes. September 2020. That is going to be the password for all our homework assignments on our Facebook page that I link for you, okay? So I've got to go in a moment because I didn't give you Chapter 1 from last night. Chapter 4, which we basically covered tonight, I want you to do that. Chapter 5, which was part of your reading, I'm not going to cover that right now. So I will give you Chapter 5 to do as homework when we talk about manual transmission. So like I said, I'm just lagging just a little bit behind. And I know Cassandra and Madison, you don't have Facebook, so I'm going to have to send this out to you. But the password's the same. Capital S, EPT, 2020. Okay, so that is your password to get into your assignments that are on our Facebook page. And like I said, I'll get this out to you in the next 10 minutes. So we're going to end right here. If you didn't do Chapter 4 or 5, I do want you to glance over it. Most of it was covered tonight, although some of the sections we did not, because I'm going to put it in a different section. So try to keep up on the reading so it kind of seems familiar to you. Hopefully you took good notes. And that takes us through our first week. So we're moving right along. Next week's going to be a little bit more probably timely for learning to drive. So we're going to be talking about communication, turning, passing, lane changes. We're going to be talking about stopping and speed and all our traffic laws, things like that. So next week, we're going to get away from knowing our car and safety equipment, stuff like that, and kind of get into the nuts and bolts of beginning to be a good driver. So keep up the good work. Send me all your assignments. Try to stay on top of things. Like I said, give me about 10 minutes to get this up and loaded with the new password because I forgot to upload the password, and I'll get this on Facebook into you momentarily. So you're good for tonight. Have a great weekend. We'll see some of you on Saturday and hopefully on Monday, Tuesday to drive. So let's get at least 1 hour in the next week or so. Have a good weekend.